Hey, thank you for coming by Tori Magoo 44. Today is the 13th of July, 2010, and this is the beginning of the countdown for me of my 10-year anniversary of escaping out of the Church of Scientology. I have been talking to various different people. I know some of you know my story a little bit, some of you know it a lot, some of you know it a ton. So if this is redundant, there you go. You don't have to listen to it. But there's a lot of new people that are now looking. There's new people that are leaving, and they don't know any of this. So I'm just going to kind of try to summarize what was going on 10 years ago for me. Today's the 13th. I escaped out on, I believe, the 20th or the 21st. I actually literally left Scientology. So this is sort of like what led up to it, and I'm going to do a few videos on it. So this one, just as an update, I had my auditor and best friend Bill Yachty had been saying to me, in the 90s, and I escaped out in 2000, we need to handle the critics on the internet. And I want you to go open up these anonymous accounts. Now, this was way before anonymous as we know it had arrived, right? They arrived in 2008. This was 1990s, the end of the 1990s. So I was like, well, what are you going to do with it? And he was like, you know what? I'm not going to tell you. Because if I tell you, you're going to end up in deposition for a long, long time, which is really what the Church of Scientology does. They put people in deposition for a long, long time. But me not knowing that at the time said, and trusting him completely, said, okay, I'll do it. And I opened up the first account, and I came back, and he wanted me to just walk in, tell them I needed an account. Here's the name, which was some phony name, and I need a password. And I need it today, and here's the money. And then we were paying with money orders. Okay, so long story short, it works. And he's like, you've changed the history of the internet. And I'm like, how can I change the history of the internet? I don't even know what it is, right? So there you go on that. Roll forward, I start realizing it's getting more and more Nazi-like. A guy named Gavino Ida, who was running this little secret operation on the internet. There was only about 5 OTs that were working on it that I knew of. And Gavino, right, who was clear. So, Gavino, I had never heard his name. I had never seen him. And all of a sudden, and I didn't like David Miscavige at all. He has royally screwed up over many of us on OT7 for years. I was on it for 7 years. Writing to him saying it doesn't work, let me off of it, and I just kept getting, okay, continue, right? So I wasn't too pleased with him, and then he has an event saying, oh, we trained them wrong, that's why they're all screwed up, so we're going to retrain all the OT7s, they'll be better, and send us all to the registrars to pay $25,000 to redo the course that we'd already done that they trained us wrong in, and pay tons of money on for 7 years. I was $60,000 in debt at that time, because my husband and I, because of all this knucklehead stuff. So I wasn't too happy with it. So now, with the secret mafia thing, I start thinking, what if David Miscavige did really hire a mafia guy? Because Bill had said to me, we can't use our own names on the phone or anything, because they might be tapping into our phones, right? I thought, this is getting really weird. So now I'm thinking, what if they really did hire real mafia guys to take out these critics? And I know it sounds funny, but that's what I thought. So I go on the internet to look, but to people that are around the world watching this, you're going to go, what's the big deal on that? But remember, this was the 90s. Not too many people were on the internet anyway, and Scientologists are very, very built in, don't look, right? They're going to handle anything on the internet. Don't even look at it. It's just really evil stuff is on there, right? And it's sort of like, okay, so I was self-censoring myself, not really looking. But Bill had taken the net nanny off of my computer, which was something they put on all Scientology computers, blocking out any of the critical thoughts, right? So he had taken that off and said, oh, it's better that it was on there, because, you would have been getting upset and And if you want to really understand the whole picture of it, go to Tori Talks to CFI, which is under one of the programs here. And that kind of tells how I got in, the whole thing, and how I got out. But for now, point being, Bill says, he took off the net nanny. So now I'm on the internet looking. I decided I got to go look and see what's happening with this anonymous account. Now remember, back then, this is in 2000, there's only one news group. That's it. Well, maybe two. There was Operation Clambake, but I wasn't on that. But the main people were posting on alt religion Scientology. That was it. And that's what OSA was spamming, was alt religion Scientology, which I didn't know at the time. I just knew they were handling the critics there. So I go on and look, and here they are. The day I looked, they had baking recipes. In their view, Bill had told me, if we can get any topic off of page 1, nobody will look at it, right? They won't really read it, which is kind of true, because people really don't read page 2. So I go and look, and here's all these baking recipes. I bake cupcakes and angel food cakes and this and that. And in between it are people saying, I didn't say this. Scientology is changing my words. And I realized, oh my God, right? You know, this isn't what I got into Scientology for, to stop free speech. And that's what got me really kind of separating from that group. And now I had gone on the internet. I'd started fighting the critics on Battlefield Earth on the message board, and then got ticked off, called Warner Brothers, got that shut down, that message board. And I honestly thought the message board and the internet were sort of the same thing. A message board is sort of like how many people you could fit into one of your bedrooms in your house. The internet is sort of like the United States, right? Or the world. You know what I mean? There's just like a million skillion people on it. But I didn't know that. I thought there were like 50 people in my living room was the difference. And so I go on there and I'm going to handle, and now I decide this has nothing to do with the Office of Special Affairs. Now it's just me. And I'm like, once I had gotten the message board shut down, I started missing the critics, which if anybody's lurking, you know what I'm talking about. When you get to the top of the Church of Scientology, you're so whitewashed. It's like you can't really think, you can't really talk to anybody. You know, they decide. You know, it's very weird. It's the opposite of what you got in there for. And that happened to me. And these critics were like, you know, they were saying what they want, doing what they want, and I was like, I kind of miss that. They were like the old cowboys. That's what they reminded me of. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go on to ARS. I'm going to talk to these critics. So I go on there, and anybody who was on there 10 years ago knows I was just insane. I honestly don't know what I was doing. I was terrified, so I was not really posting any logical things. I was just like, I thought if I could just be in their space, I might learn something, like a thing. Little did I know how much would happen in that time. But I made 4,000 posts in 4 weeks. And during that time of the 4,000 posts, on a news group, you have, I say something, you say something. And in between, there's a whole bunch of arrows. I knew how to copy paste. That's the only thing I knew how to do, right? So I'm copying what somebody says, and now I'm going to answer it. And I'm thinking, oh, who needs all these little arrows? So I'm erasing them, right? And then sending it on AOL, right? So Andreas, the devil of the universe, for me, you know, this huge Operation Clambag, Xenu.net, you know, which was, Xenu's a big, huge confidential word in the Church of Scientology. You're not allowed to say it. And here he is with it splattered all over his website. So he was a big, bad guy for me. And he sends me an email saying, Magoo, nobody can understand what you're talking about. You don't know how to format. And I'm like, okay. And he teaches me how to format. And I do it, and it works. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Here's someone that's this evil, horrible person. And remember, we were using at the time phony names, phony addresses, phony everything, you know, so that nothing could be traced to the Church of Scientology. So my mother had always taught me, if somebody does something nice for you, send them a thank you note. So there's that little blue, it was over here, was this little blue, you know, email address. And here I am in my dining room. This is a difference than old days. In the old days, you had to leave the Church of Scientology, connect up with the suppressive people, good chance you'd lose all your friends and your family, da-da-da-da. But now I'm in the dining room, I'm all by myself, and I think, well, I should just send them a thank you note. So I click on the little thing, and I'm like, Dear Andreas. And I mean, I'm terrified. I really am. I mean, they build in so much fear about suppressive people. I mean, I'm just literally terrified. And I'm like, thank you very much for helping me on ARS. Mother, right? And I hit send. And I'm like, now I'm communicating with a suppressive person. I'm just like, I'm really scared. And I'm sure he's going to write back something horribly scary and really upsetting to me. So now I see this thing from him, comes back, and I think, oh my God, this is it. I'm all ready. I'm braced. I'm in my dining room where my computer was at the time. And I'm like, I'm ready. And I click on it to open it up. And he goes, Dear Magoo, you're welcome. Best wishes, Andreas Helderlin. And he's got his complete address and his phone number, everything. His cell phone number. And I sit there and I think, what is wrong with this picture? Here's this guy who is, everybody said he's the evilest person in the world, and per everything he is. And yet, he's honest, he's telling his name, he's telling his address, he's telling his phone number, and he helped me. And, he just seemed really nice. And that was the beginning of, I call it my Truman Show. And that was the beginning of in my Truman Show. And this will be continued in a couple of days. I'll tell you some more about this exit. This is my exit out, where I escape out, but it's kind of the build up to it. So my whole universe right then, now I'm kind of in touch with Andreas Helderlin, SP. I'll tell you one other thing. So I think, all right, the guy's pretty nice. I'm going to ask him, why do you have up all this stuff about my religion? And he writes back, and all of you that have heard this know this, but it's a dramatic thing. He says, I believe in truth. I believe in looking at both sides. I believe in having the courage to say what I think. I don't think Scientologists are bad. I just think they're misinformed. Best wishes, Andreas Helderlin. And I sat in my dining room and I cried for about 2 hours straight. I couldn't stop crying. Why? Because that is who I was at 22. That's exactly who I was at 22. And now, 30 years later, I was this controlled, couldn't talk to people, couldn't look. I couldn't. I still had courage, but the rest of it was totally shot because of Scientology, because of the Church of Scientology. And that was a huge crack in my Truman Show. Huge. And now, 10 years later, I just cannot believe how fabulous it is, how open it is, how great it is for people to come out. And I can't thank everyone enough, from years past that many of you don't even know, to all the ex-Scientologists who have left, to the critics who have left. I mean, they didn't leave. They started looking at it and, exposing the abuses of the Church of Scientology. Those guys, Anonymous, and all that you guys have done, and everybody else who's come out since then, even the independent Scientologists, you guys are making waves. More people are coming out because of that. So it is a fantastic thing. And just remember, OSA's #1 plan is divide and conquer. So don't let them do that to you. Okay? Because the more we're all on the same page, basically, as far as exposing the abuses of the Church of Scientology. And you know what, Scientology and David Miscavige, I've told you this for many years. Tick-tock, time is on our side. And you can run, but you cannot hide. That's it. I love you guys. Peace out. I hope you have an excellent week. Bye-bye.